Oh, hey, friends. Welcome to this week's episode of Ask Mish. All right, this episode is when I got this question, my friend texted it to me actually over the weekend and it got bumped because when she said it to me, it literally made me cringe. And because I had that reaction, I was like, all right, I have to do an episode on it. She was asking about my routine. She's like, you seem to have your shit sewed together. Like, what are your routines? And I always struggled so much with routine so much of my life. This is the podcast episode that I wish I had 10 years ago because before I really had good routines, I was a chaotic mess. And I wish somebody made this because the way that the content that I've heard so far on routine building has been for like the type A person, and I'm not that. But I'm sure there's other people like me out there. So I hope this resonates with you. Please go to our Instagram and let me know what you think. All right. I'm dying to know what you think of this episode. And just make sure you're following us in general at ask_mish. That's ASK_MISH. Make sure you're following us so you can ask me all of your questions. I want to hear your feedback on this episode. So make sure you're following us on there. I'll link it in the show notes. But let's dive into this week's question. Dear Mish, I would like to know your routine. Like, how the hell do you get so much shit done in one day? Like, I want to know what goes on in your brain and how you handle your cool. You probably get 5,000 texts and emails and all that. So, how do you keep all of your shit together? What is your morning and night routine? You seem like you have it all together. What is your secret? Okay, so let me break this down for you. I am not, and I can't stress this enough, I am not a type A girly. So I used to like look at these girls. I watched every podcast, I watched every YouTube video of all these girls being like, "Look, watch this for your ideal morning routine. All you have to do is you're gonna wake up and you're gonna meditate for 20 minutes, and then you're gonna journal your feelings, and then you're gonna drink a green juice, and then you're gonna go for a walk, and then you're gonna do a hit workout, and then Pilates, and then email, and then like I'm just not that girl. Like I tried so many times to be that girl, and I'm just not that girl. It's not that I'm not that girl. That girl didn't that the way that people approach doing tasks like that didn't resonate with me. I'm like not a type A girl, I'm a type Z girl. And I realized when this person asked me this question, I cannot be the only type Z girl out there. The problem is I was so bad, like so bad at routines, but so damn good at still getting things done, which is like the worst combination of things to be. Because if you're bad at routines and then you're not getting shit done, at least you could turn around to yourself and be like, all right, bitch, listen, like you're not getting anything done. We can't do it your way anymore. But I was still was so good at getting things done. So part of me is like, maybe this is just my chaotic process. This is just who I am. I just have to like suffer for my art. But you don't. So how did I kind of get from point A to point B? Nutrish Mish we were always different in terms of like how we approached weight loss and how we approached nutrition, and it was always habit focused, right? It was always habit focused. It was always based on like looking at where someone was at and like, okay, how do we kind of create habits there? And in the process of really refining Nutrish Mish, as we've gotten better and better with our program, I really have turned it into more of a habit change program that's specifically designed for eating habits rather than like a traditional weight loss program. So in the process of me being a psychopath, like learning about habits because I wanted my clients to be so much better, so I researched it for them. Then I was like, wait, why don't I try applying some of this shit to myself? And then I didn't actually, I'm not even gonna pretend like I was that self-aware. I was like, huh. I was like, you know what's interesting? Like I'm reading about all these things about habit change. And you know what's so weird is like I do the exact opposite in my life. That's so weird that I do that. And then a long time later, I was like, maybe if I don't know, maybe I tried applying some of the stuff that I talk about like every single day to like things other than nutrition, like maybe to my own life, maybe I would be more sane and more successful. Like maybe like it was a slow. I don't want to pretend like I just had this light bulb moment because I didn't. My life before I started really focusing on routines was freaking chaos. So, I mean, this is no exaggeration. I'm just going to tell you guys straight up. Basically, what would happen is I would wake up in the morning exhausted from the tasks previously, and I would wake up like it was so all or nothing. I'd wake up like 15 minutes before my first client. I'd like get there, and then depending on where we're talking about in my career, I was also then seeing clients pretty much for 10 to 11 hours a day, 7 days a week. I maybe on Saturdays and Sundays, I think it was less. It was like maybe 8 to 1, but it was still very chaotic. I was hustling in the beginning. Anything outside of that wasn't happening. Like I would have piles of laundry done. My room was a mess. I'm not saying it wasn't a mess before. Like I've never been a naturally neat person, but everything was just like chaotic. It was very all or nothing. So when I did have time off, I would need to do other things because when you own a business, there's more things you need to do than just seeing clients, right? You need to like answer emails, you need to do marketing, you need to train your staff, you need to hire people, you need to do your accounting, you need to do like all these things because in the beginning you don't have a lot of money, so you're like wearing every single hat. So I would have these like pockets of time and I would be so annoyed at myself because I'm like, you should be doing these things now, this is your downtime, this is your chance. But I wasn't, because I was so, didn't recognize it at the time, and I was so burned out. So there's this funny reel that I've seen floating around on social media where it's like it's talking about a weekend and it's like, hey, so did you have a productive weekend? And they're like, no, not really. And then they're like, okay, cool, well, did you relax and recharge? And they're like, no, I didn't do that either. And they're like, okay, wow. So and that was me. I lived in that state constantly where I was like mad at myself for not working, but then also not working, like negotiating with myself constantly. So that was like the chaos in the beginning. But like even as I got a team and even as I saw less clients and even as like my rules shifted and everything, I still was really not good at routines. I sort of lived in like two states. Either I was working or I was like comatose, or I was working or I was on the couch, or I was working or I was watching TV. Like there was no like in between stuff happening. And it took time to like build that in. But I realized it was so important because when I come home and my like apartment's a mess and like I don't really have like healthy meals like easily ready to go, and I didn't have all that, like it made it so much harder. So I'm going to tell you all of the principles that I use to create my routine, and then I'm going to tell you what my routine is just so you can see how that kind of like shaped together. So the overarching principle that I think is crucial to habit change is the we'll call it a rule principle. We'll call it a principle. The principle that the brain wants to move towards things that make it feel good and away from things that make it feel bad. So I think the actual principle says the brain wants to move towards pleasure and away from pain. And that's very true in my industry, in the weight loss industry, because traditionally when people are trying to lose weight, they go on a diet, which diets suck. Like there's so much pain associated with the diet because you have to think about everything that you have to give up. And the only time that people decide that they want to go on a diet is when the pain of their current weight or health or whatever is greater than the perceived pain of whatever restrictions they're going to have to make on that diet program, until their weight goes down a little bit. And then they're like, okay, actually these sacrifices are worse. And then they stop doing the diet. That's one of the hallmark reasons why most diets fail. So obviously from working in the industry, I knew that. So my understanding of the type A girlies, and I don't want to speak for them because I'm not one of them, but my observation would be, if we're using this kind of pain pleasure principle, is that they seem to at least totally get off on the idea of like crossing something off a list. Like they enjoy accomplishing a task. They enjoy like checking the box off. Personally, and I'm sure not the only one, but I don't really get much out of that. Like and this is just me, I'm sure this is not everybody, but one of my core values is I get a dopamine hit off of the ability of like doing things differently than everybody else. So like weirdly enough, me pulling an all-nighter and being able to function the next day gives me more of a dopamine hit, as messed up as that sounds, more so than just like merely checking something off or crossing something off a list just because I did it. But in order for me, using this kind of pain pleasure principle, if I'm getting nothing out of crossing something off a list, but I'm getting something out of doing it the way that I'm doing it, well, okay, that's why I'm doing it that way. So how do I create more pleasure in doing it in a way that's like healthier for me, and or like more pain in the way that I'm currently doing it? So in order to do that, you either have, a lot of times it involves having a mindset shift around something, because you could train the brain to have a mindset shift around anything. The example I like to use with my clients is, if you go to the gym for the first time and you work out, you might experience muscle soreness the next day. Now, there are some people that go to the gym and if they don't experience muscle soreness, they don't feel like they worked out hard enough. Now, whether that's true or not, whatever, that's not the point. But like they feel good. They enjoy that feeling of actual physical pain because they've associated it with growth. But then there are some people that might go to the gym and feel that pain the next day and they're like, I'm never going to the gym again. And what's interesting is if you can train your brain to associate actual physical pain with something positive, then you could probably do it with anything. So the first place that I noticed that I did this for myself was going to the gym or exercising. I used to be someone that really also struggled with getting into an exercise routine. I was a dancer most of my life. I never really had to exercise because I was exercising all the time. And then when I graduated college and I stopped, I was like, oh, I actually have to like work this into my life. And it automatically just became a chore to me. It automatically became something I didn't want to do. It automatically just became like how a lot of people experience it. And when I finally got into a stable exercise routine at some point in my life, I did it because I started associating it with pleasure. And the way that I did that was, and I've told this many times, most of my clients know the story, is I started letting myself watch Housewives of whatever when I was on the treadmill. If you guys know one other thing about me other than what I do for work, I am a reality TV show Bravo junkie. Like if I could have if my dream in life is put me on Real Housewives, just like put me on, put me in, coach. I'm like ready to like I'm obsessed. I love it so much. Um, but so what I would do is I would say to myself, okay, Michelle, you're going to go to the gym and you're going to bring your iPad down. You're going to bring your whatever down. And you're going to go on the treadmill and you get to watch your episode of the show. And I now associated, but I would only let myself watch that show while I was on the treadmill or while I was doing whatever. So now I've associated like that show and me wanting to watch it with going to the gym. So now I want to go to the gym, not because I care about the gym, but because I want to like do that show. And that's what started creating that habit. And then over time that turned into like really really great playlists, and that turned into really good podcasts and really good audiobooks. So but I've associated working out with something that gave me more pleasure than pain, and that's why I started going to the gym. So when I started forming habits and my day around things that made me feel good, now I just was it was so much easier for me to fall within a routine when I was thinking about it like that. So I either A, enjoyed doing the task, like that was something like seeing my clients. I've always loved seeing my clients. That brings me the most joy in the world. I love that. It was something maybe I didn't enjoy, but was able to have a mindset shift around it, like the gym, or it was something that I couldn't really have a mindset shift around. I didn't really enjoy doing it, so I just delegated it. And for me, that's emails. I if you guys probably if you follow me in my stories, you know how much I get mail anxiety of all kinds, emails, actual mail, whatever. Like I don't check my mail. It's so bad. Like it's so bad. It's so bad. And emails for some reason give me anxiety. I don't know where this anxiety was born from, but it just was born. So I delegated the task of my emails to my amazing admin, Jillian, who she checks my emails every morning before I wake up. And the important ones are there and she'll answer the ones that she can. And if there's anything anxiety provoking in there, she will like give me a gentle warning before I view it. And that has made that a much better task because it just wasn't getting done. It would get procrastinated. Then I start to feel bad because it's not getting done and I don't want to do it and blah, blah, blah. So I just delegated it. Now, you might be like, but Michelle, I don't have an admin. I get that. But I'm sure there's tasks in your life that you can delegate. And this is a conversation I have with women in my office constantly. I literally had this conversation. I did a TikTok about it actually because it blew my mind so much. This woman said to me one time, and she's not the first one. She's not the only one. It was just the most recent one that I remembered. She had so much on her plate. She was working 24/7. She was like full-time mom, like whatever. And then I said to her, I was like, she was having a hard time eating well because she couldn't get groceries in the house. And I was like, well, can your husband help you? And she's like, no, 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 no. He can't go grocery shopping. I was like, what do you mean he can't? She's like, he doesn't know how. I'm like, he's a collegiately educated man, no? And she's like, yes. And I was like, so why can't he go? And she's like, well, he just like always gets it wrong. And I said, yeah, but you need to kind of train him because you just doing everything yourself is not going to work. Like this is the third or fourth week in a row that you haven't really been able to do a full grocery trip, not because it doesn't feel good, just because you don't physically have the time. And you're telling me that you're not, you got to take some, you have to delegate it to him. And she was like blown away by that, but she did. And it took a couple of tries, but eventually her husband was able to successfully go grocery shopping. And I said, look, manage your expectations. The first time he's going to call you 500 times. A good practice to get into is instead of just answering his question, be like, well, what do you think? Do I get this chicken or this chicken? Well, what do you think? And then if he's right over and over and over again, now we're building his confidence. Now that's good. Now we're like, great. So, but my point is that as women, I think a lot of times we don't think to delegate and we have to. Not delegating makes you a weak leader. That's something I learned the hard way. If you can delegate, that makes you a very strong leader. In the beginning of a delegation process, you do have to keep your eye on what's going on. You do have to like kind of check in. But once that person knows how to do whatever that task is, be it grocery shopping or helping out with dinner or just something extra that you have on your plate, now that's something that you don't have on your plate. Now that's something that you don't really enjoy doing that you don't have to do. And now it's easier to free up the rest of your schedule for routines. So I think that is such an important thing when I was developing my own routines is that you need to as much as you can enjoy the process. Are there things that I do that I don't love? Yes, of course, but there's like a greater good for it. But for the most part, everything that I do consistently, I've either been able to have a mindset shift over, I've enjoyed doing it in the first place, or I've delegated it, and it's made a world of difference. So the first principle is we want to do more pleasure, less pain. That one's easy. Okay. Second principle is something that I've made up. I call it, what do I call it? I call it having different styles for different seasons. So when you're not a type A person and the type A person schedule is like, so from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. you do Pilates, and then from 7 a.m. to 7:15 you get dressed. Like if you try to make me follow that schedule, like I get thrown off in the first, like I'll be behind within an hour at some point. Like I'll be ready to be behind the schedule, and then I'll feel like, well, I'm ready behind the schedule, and then I'll just dump the whole schedule because that's just how my brain works, and I'm sure other people's do too. So here's my kind of workaround for that. Different styles for different seasons, right? That's what we're going to call it. Meaning, like, what is the intention of the habit? And then what are different flavors or different vibes or different fonts of getting that accomplished depending on what's going on? So, we talk about this with my clients too. Like, when we're talking about the holiday season, you should have different expectations for the holidays when you're trying to lose weight or eat healthier than you should in February where nothing is going on, right? And that's sort of the difference between lifestyle change, which is a habit, and a diet, which applies to this as well. So if we're comparing this again to exercise, just because that's a good point of comparison, there are times where I have so much time to exercise. There are times where I need to like actually physically get out of my apartment to do it. And then there are times where the idea of doing it is so interrupting to my day and my productivity that it just doesn't seem important. But I know that I want to create this exercise routine. So like, how do I do that? So you have different like flavors or different styles or whatever we want to call it. So sometimes for me, that will look like I will put my Apple Watch on and I will be like, okay, at the end of today, I'll set my move goal to like however many calories, like 5, 6, 700, whatever. By the end of the day, you have to hit this many. Or I've set up my offices to have like walking pads, right? So while I'm seeing clients virtually, I'll go on my little walking pad, and you would be surprised how much that burns and how much activity that actually gets, or how many steps that actually, like that adds up quickly. So I will actually probably get more activity or more movement, or even burn more calories if that's what's important to you, on a day that I'm on my walking pad walking at like 2 miles an hour doing nothing while I'm seeing virtual clients for a couple hours than if I were to like go to a workout at the gym. But there's different benefits to both. So there are seasons where so as long as I'm accomplishing the overarching theme of I want to be an active person, instead of putting that pressure on myself, like I have to go to the gym from 6 to 7 every day, it just takes that pressure off of me and makes it more realistic. All right. So one, we have the brain wants to move towards things that make it feel good, away from things that make it feel bad. Number two, we want to have different styles for different seasons so that we can accomplish whatever we want to accomplish with our busy, crazy, chaotic, inconsistent lives. And number three is something I like to call tweak your week. And I drill this into my clients' brains because it's so important. What tweak your week is when we start to decide we want to do something, we get the knowledge that we want to do it confused with the skill set of implementation. Knowledge and implementation are two completely different skill sets, and implementing something into your life is hard to do. But the nice thing about implementing is once you get it and once you work it in and once you tweak and once you finesse and you rinse and repeat, then it becomes autopilot. And when something is autopilot, you don't have to think about it anymore. And when you invest some time into some solid like autopilot like habits that you don't have to think about, that require no energy, that they're just part of what you do, like that is a huge investment in yourself and your life and your everything. The problem is that we don't manage our expectations well, and we think just because we decided it, we should be able to do it, not thinking about all the things that could possibly go wrong. And then we get mad at ourselves. So instead of like thinking like, okay, I tried to implement this thing and this is how much better I was at it than I was last week when I wasn't doing it all, our brains tend to go to, well, this is how far I still am from perfect. And then we get mad at ourselves. And when you get mad at yourselves, you're trying to like, and you're beating yourself up over the imperfections and things like that. Now you're making your brain feel bad about it. Now your brain's like, I'm not really into this anymore. And it wants to tune out, where really it was an inevitable part of the process. And now you've almost missed a really good opportunity to learn something. So for example, when I'm talking about this with my clients, when it comes to nutrition, if I have a client that comes in and they're like, oh my God, I had such a terrible week, and they're like spiraling and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, my weekend was terrible. I binged. That's going to be a very different outcome than I have somebody who comes in. They're like, you know what? Like I had a much better week than I had last week. Last week, I wasn't even going grocery shopping. I did that. So that was good. But I really did struggle with binge eating over the weekend. Like, can you help me like figure that out so that I have a better handle on that for next week? Two completely different outcomes are going to come from those two conversations, right? So the first person, they're beating themselves up, they're feeling negative, like their brain's not really going to be fully into it. They're going to be having all these thoughts of self-doubt, I'm never going to be able to do this and blah blah blah. When in reality, anytime that you're doing something for the first time, you're trying to implement it, like there's going to be imperfections. That's inevitable. Like, how do you tweak? How do you learn from it? It's sort of like, Monday morning quarterbacking, right? So the second person, let's say I say, okay, cool. Let's talk about your week. So your week looked pretty good. Yeah, I do see that you binged over the weekend. Now that I'm looking at it, here's what I'm seeing. You didn't really eat enough during the day on your weekend because, you're probably unstructured. You're waking up a little bit later. So you're probably actually physically hungrier at night. So let's have you eating a little bit more during the day so that from a physiological point of view, you're not binging. But then also, I remember you just said that you remember that your kids really upset you. So you were probably emotionally eating there too. So let me give you some tools to deal with emotional eating so you can practice those. And eventually that's not something that you're going to deal with. The first person, we didn't even maybe necessarily get to have that conversation because they weren't even in tune with what went wrong because they were so busy beating themselves up over not being perfect that they missed the opportunity to learn something from that situation. So whenever you're trying to form any kind of habit, the expectation should be that like progress, we always say improve, don't perfect, progress is better than perfection. Look at what you were last week and like what were some of the things that you did that were better than that. And it's a good thing to do that to your brain because again, when you give your brain that like good girl or attaboy, your brain is like, oh good, I did that. Your brain's going to want to do more of that thing versus if you're just like beating it up. Now, when you're implementing a habit, it's inevitable that you're going to have some things that don't work. It's going to need some tweaking. It's going to need some finesse. You're going to want to build on it. So then you want to take that next opportunity, be like, okay, well, what can I maybe do differently for next time? What didn't go well and what can I do differently? And now you've captured that opportunity to do better. And you keep building and building and building and rinsing and repeating. And eventually it just becomes what you do. So as a fourth little bonus situation, you want to have tools that support the way your brain works and what feels good to you. I am somebody who I'm a writer. For some weird reason, me typing things in my phone doesn't stick with me as well as physically writing them down. So I literally like have a notebook. I have my iPad just for this like notebook app. In this notebook app, I think I'm on page 3000 of something. I have to write everything down. I have different notebooks for everything. And this is like what I travel around with me. I have to like write things. In my office, my home office here, I have a whiteboard that is the size of my wall. It's like a 7 foot by 7 foot whiteboard. And that's where I like write all my ideas on there. So having tools like that around and knowing like what tools you need to like be successful and create those habits makes it much easier. So one thing I'll do for myself is on Sunday, I'll take that giant ass whiteboard and I'll kind of cut it into like the different aspects of my week. So like Nutrish Mish, I have to do the marketing stuff. I have to do the CEO stuff. I have to do the client stuff. I have to do the staff training stuff. Okay. And then for the podcast, I have to do this stuff. So that way I can kind of like see in one area. Before I did that, it was all just like a jumbled mess in my brain. And I didn't really know like what, like when things were, or what at least had to get done for that week. Some type A-ish people prefer like time blocking, like they'll look at their calendar, like in a phone and they'll like time block. And I envy those people. I'm not that girl. Maybe one day I will be, but I'm just not. Like the idea of time blocking and with color coded schedule calendar sounds so beautiful to me, but every time I've tried to implement it, it's just not something I keep up with. But I keep up with my whiteboard, I keep up with my iPad, and I have a thick ass daily planner, like physical planner that's like 300 pages. The big like joke in my friend group is like, don't send Michelle a calendar invite because she won't get it. Like I get it, but I don't use my phone calendar. I only use my phone calendar for my actual scheduling software appointments. Otherwise, I'm a physical writer. So just because everyone does things a certain way doesn't mean you have to do things that way. It's got to just be whatever works for you, whatever feels good for you. And for me, it's writing. For most other humans, it's digital, but whatever works for you is fine as long as it feels good and it works. All right, so now that you understand my principles that I used to take myself from a chaotic mess to a way less chaotic mess, I'll now tell you my routine and like how they all apply in. So I typically have two different types of days. I have days where I see clients in the morning. I have days where I see clients in the afternoon. On days when I see clients in the afternoon, I typically have a freer morning. So my morning routine will look something like I wake up and I walk my dog because have to, right? And like that's actually good. She like I'm not a morning person, so she like gets me up. She gets like oxygen and sunlight and all that good stuff to my face. I feel like if I like went right from bed to the idea of going to a gym or doing something productive, I would be way more likely to hit the snooze button a lot more than I already do. So wake up, we walk the dog. Now, again, just with that dopamine hit on the way back, I happen to dangerously live below or above a Starbucks. So then we stop when we get our Starbies. way more often than we should. But then I get my little like caffeine hit. I'm like ready to go. I'm sort of feeling like a human being. So by the time I get back to my apartment, I'm like, oh, I'm a human. That's amazing. So then my next thing is again with the principle of getting my headspace in a good place. So if I do feel the need to like journal or like do a gratitude thing or like exercise or do something, or like if I have the time to exercise there, I will. But it's really with the intention of like getting my mindset right. So that's the season style thing, right? Like my intention is to get my mindset right. I have these tools to do it. I don't need to gratitude and journal and meditate and do all of those things just to check them off my box. The intention of doing all of those things is getting my head in a good place. So which do I need, if any, to get my head in a good place? So that's my style seasons thing. So that's usually like the first thing that I'll do is I'll just do a quick check in and be like, are we singing today? If so, cool. Let's go on to the next. Are we not? Okay, pick one of the tools to like get the sanity in check, because that is important. So now the next thing that I do, again, because I've trained myself to enjoy the process of it, is I do like to make myself a really good breakfast. Now, breakfast for me as a nutritionist at this point is very like medicinal. It's not like something I need to like have something delicious and I enjoy. It's like fueling my body for the day. Now, later on in the day, I trust me, and if you guys know me, you know I like to use food for fun in other ways. But in the morning, it's very like for fuel. It's the tools my body needs to make me the right way. And I like to have, and again, this wasn't something that I just like did all at once. I started by like having no breakfast, right? And then I started with like, okay, I probably should be eating breakfast. So let me just eat something I really like. And then it was like eggs and bacon or something like that. Then I was like, all right, let me make myself feel good while I'm doing it. So then that transformed to like, all right, let me do like an avocado toast, or now I'll do like piece of toast with like cashew butter or some almond butter or something like that. And then I was like, well, let me add like maybe like a medicinal tea to this mix. And then I started like juicing recently. So again, it's not something where I did all of those things at once, right? It was that tweak your week thing where I kind of like had the framework of it, and then I like built and built and built on it. I didn't start with the most. I like increased to that. So then on the days where I have clients in the afternoons, those which are Mondays and Wednesdays for me, what I realized at some point during the week was I had all these projects at any given point that weren't being hit at all within the week. So, and I'm not going to lie, there was a long period, probably too long a period of time, where instead of tweaking my week like I should have, I got pissed off at myself for it. But then I was like, okay, stop getting pissed off at yourself for the 45th week in a row, and let's actually like look and see what the problem is and come up with a system to make this happen less. And that's where my whiteboard was born that I was telling you guys about. So on this whiteboard, I have every project that I have going on because my ADHD brain needs to see it, and then what I want to accomplish for the week within each project. And my expectations, I'm not going to accomplish all of them, but I could see which ones are getting hit and which ones aren't. And typically Mondays are like the CEO thing. So Mondays, I always do have a staff meeting with my team. If we have a new person that we're training, I usually train them right after that. That's when I meet with my office admin. I make sure everyone has everything ready to go. I'll like, give them some suggestions on their session. We make sure we're like the whole team is set up for the week. That's usually like my Monday mornings, like my CEO column of that. And then whatever I decide I want to do like mid-afternoon, and then afternoon night I'm seeing clients, whatever. So that's like my Monday. Wednesdays, I usually do like podcast, right? So that's like what I do there, and then I see clients afterwards. But until I saw that I had that blind spot of like, I'm not utilizing this time well, and I'm missing these projects, and certain projects aren't getting hit. Until I took a second to tweak my week, I was missing that. And then I was like, okay, now I can see that everything's being hit, and these are the time blocks that I'm going to do it. Now, if I was very specific and strict with myself as to what had to get accomplished, and it was the same every week, again, my personality type, I'm less likely to do that. It's less likely to feel good to me. I'm more likely to fail. So I'm flexible with it, but at least I have a framework where, again, it's getting accomplished, it's getting done, it feels good. So on my days where I'm seeing clients in the morning, it's a little bit different. So I still wake up, walk my dog, which is great. I'm awake. I'm a human being, sort of. And then I have I can't do my leisurely breakfast, and I'm not going to try to, because it's not going to feel good to me to not be able to sleep in as much as I'd like to. So then I just do something quick. Again, just getting that accomplished, right? Like the different styles for different season situation. So I'll have something quicker. So I'll do like a nutritious protein shake. I'll do like maybe a breakfast bar, like a kind bar or something, like something quick, and just kind of be out the door. And then I'm seeing clients, like, which I enjoy doing. I show up on my stories every day because I like doing it. Like that makes me happy. Like seeing my clients, showing up my stories. Like when I get to connect with people and I feel like I help people and I feel like I make some sort of an impact on people, I like doing that. That makes me happy. So my brain automatically always wants to do it. When I'm done with my clients for the morning, I'll like catch up on whatever's going on. My whole team's on Slack so I could see, what's going on. And, I have visibility on how everyone's doing. I'll see the schedule, blah, 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 catch up. And then on that off, in between, I'll come home and I'll have lunch. I do live very close to where I work, which is a blessing. I'm very lucky to have that. I'll take my dog for another walk, and then I'll sort of do the opposite as I do on the Monday, Wednesdays. I'll start my like whatever tasks I have to do on those two time slots. So Tuesdays, a lot of times that's filming content, and then Thursdays, it's whatever projects I have going on related to business stuff. So it's whatever else I didn't like hit during that week. Now at night, I really love what I do. But I also recognize that I don't do as well when I'm just productive all the time. Like I need time to like chill and reflect. And I will say, as an entrepreneur, I'm dating an entrepreneur right now. And I will say it's really, really nice to be dating an entrepreneur because like you can come home and just like talk about what happened during your day, and you can like bounce ideas off of each other. And one thing that I always tell my clients, all of my clients, my Mish Mindset clients, as well as my Nutrition Mish clients, is that nobody has the ability to see like what's going on within themselves as well as somebody from a distance, but it's got to be somebody that you trust, right? Like when you're in the eye of the storm, you can't see it. So in business, I can see every problem that everyone has in everyone's business that I know, but for me, it's hard to see those things myself because I'm in it. So I have like blind spots. So it's been so nice at the end of the day where, my boyfriend and I will come home and we'll just like talk about our businesses. We'll talk about what happened. We'll bounce ideas off each other. And he has amazing ideas for me and my business and vice versa, because we tend to think very differently. I'm much more of a creative thinker. He's much more of a process and procedure thinker, which is where we both lack, which is nice. So it's kind of nice to come home, and it's a weird way of sort of just like decompressing, have that like creative, like reflective time to just kind of think and like create and like improve, but just like in a way where we also get to spend time with each other, which is really nice. Sometimes we also work really late. So at those times, it's really nice to have, someone who understands that and can work with you, and we can, just order in really good food and just be like, all right, it's just going to be a late night and just do it together. And then also like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? That's been a really nice addition to my nighttime routine. And then we always watch Jersey Shore because it's my favorite TV show and I got him hooked on it. So we'll watch Jersey Shore. So as hard as I work during the week, I like to play equally hard. So I love to go out to really nice dinners. I like to drink spicy margaritas. I like to show that you can still live a healthy life and like enjoy stuff. Like I'll show myself ordering the steak, not ordering the salad. Like if I'm going out, I'm going out. And I think that's an important part of this, is like the reason that I'm able to eat healthy so much is because I do let myself indulge. And anybody, no matter what your weight loss goals, could get away with that. It's just about how much of each. And that's what we help people figure out with at Nutrition Mish. So I like going out and being able to like really, truly like live that lifestyle. I also love EDM. I love going to raves. I love going to festivals. That's like my favorite thing in the world to do. So in the summertime, you could pretty much find me on my own personal summer tour with whoever will go with me. I'm always seeing different DJs. And that's just like what I like to do. Now, and again, the reason that I'm able to work so hard is because I do let myself like decompress. I do let myself play, and I do let myself like really enjoy those things. And I can really like live my life the way I want to. And when you have that balance, I think it's important. Everyone who talks about like work-life balance is like, there is no such thing. Like there is. It's just about, it doesn't have to be balanced all the time. But I think if you're always approaching things from like, well, what brings you joy? How can you like create a mindset shift where you're actually like enjoying the process of everything you're doing, like then it always feels good. We don't have to like define it as like work time and off time. Like I hate that. I like just being able to, intertwine it all. And as long as it all feels good to me, I'm down. So the person that asked me this question, she followed up by saying, you seem like you have your life so together. And that sort of struck me because I don't feel like I have my life together. I don't feel like anybody actually really feels like they have their life together. I do understand as I'm saying all this stuff, it probably sounds as though I do, but this is like my framework. Like it's not how it actually gets executed every week, but having this framework makes it so that when I inevitably fall, I don't fall too far, and I don't fall too far because I like getting back to what I'm getting back to. And I think that's really important, because I think when I was trying to set up these routines and all these things, in the past, it never felt right to me because I'm the self-proclaimed type Z person that, the checking off of the list and the color-coded calendars, like they just don't do anything for me. So I always felt I was living in chaos, and I always was getting really hard on myself. And it just made the quality of my life like not as good. And I wasn't able to really, I wasn't really able to enjoy my life as much. So I was never somebody that was like pro routine. I would have said I was anti routine a long time ago, and I wasn't anti routine. I just never found a way that worked for me. So I'm so curious to hear if I'm the only one that feels that way. So if you guys wouldn't mind going over to Instagram, as you guys know, we've gotten the show's its own Instagram. It's at ask underscore mish ask underscore mish. I want to know, am I the only one out there that that is this self-proclaimed type Z person that like the routines and the lists and the all these like things that you hear as far as creating a routine just never worked for? And like, was this helpful information for you? Please let me know. I'm so curious. Also, make sure that you're asking me questions on there. I will answer them in my stories within the next week or two. I also want to have Nick, our new male representative, on. So I want to hear what you guys have questions for Nick. Like, what do we want the male opinion on? Like, what do we want to know about? Because you guys seem to really enjoy having him on. So I figured we'd have him on once a month to give us like the male commentary, the male perspective. So I want to know what your questions are on there too. So I'm going to have all this stuff loaded up in my stories. I want to see you guys on there participating because I want to make sure the show is hitting all the marks that you want it to hit. So I will see you guys on Instagram. I will check you guys out next week and have a productive week. Create a routine. Bye.